thank you, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon or even good evening, depending where you are in the world. Thanks very much for joining this ICRA webinar session. And some of you on the call might be wondering, what is ICRA and what does ICRA stand for? So let me just introduce ICRA first, and then we'll move into the substance of the webinar itself with Natalia. So ICRA stands for International Cultural Relations Research Alliance. And I represent the British Council on that alliance, so I should probably just introduce myself first, in case there's anyone on the call who doesn't know me. I'm James Perkins, Head of Research Excellence in the Research and Insight team at the British Council, and the British Council is part of this ICRA network. So ICRA is a network of researchers, practitioners, and others with a research interest in international cultural relations. And it's a global network. It's full of people from around the world, and we're growing to become even more diverse. And when I mentioned cultural relations just then, some people on the call might be thinking, oh, what does cultural relations mean? So I should probably give a very brief introduction to cultural relations, which is a whole webinar in itself, but don't worry, this is going to be very succinct. So we're interested in international connections and relationships across countries and between cultures. So we're interested in things like cultural diplomacy, soft power, international development, cultural exchange, the international creative economy, international education, those kinds of topics. So ICRA is a network of people who are interested in exchanging ideas and perspectives on this topic and really bringing a global discourse into that and to take forward that research agenda. As part of ICRA, we run regular webinars where members of the network can present research they've been working on or work in progress, or just share ideas that they think are of interest. And this is what we have today, a presentation from Natalia Grincheva, who hopefully you can see on your screen, and I will ask her to introduce herself properly in a minute. But Natalia has been working, as you can see from the title of the session, on some research into the Korean wave, and that's what we're going to find out about today. I'm very much looking forward to it. So just before I hand over to Natalia to get going, just to give you a brief outline of the sort of structure of the session, Natalia will give us a presentation for around 40 minutes, and that will leave us around 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. And if you have a question at any point, you can pop it into the Q&A box. So there's I think you might see two things where you could potentially share questions. There's something called chat, and there's something called Q&A. And I think we're going to use Q&A for the questions today. So please pop any questions, comments, links, useful information, reactions you may have into the Q&A box. And I'll try and keep track of them as we go along. And then when Natalia finishes, we can go there and we can dive into the Q&A. Great. I think that's all I need to say by way of introduction. So I'm now going to pass over to Natalia Grincheva for the presentation today. Natalia, thank you very much. It's over to you.
Thank you so much, James, for this lovely introduction and for explaining what ICRA means. And I proudly can also say that I'm an ICRA member. So, and as an ICRA member, I'm interested, of course, in all the questions of cultural diplomacy, international cultural relations. But my focus comes from data analytics, cultural analytics, and AI perspective. And in the past few years, I have been working very deeply with the questions of data-driven approaches and computational approaches to explore international cultural relations and digital diplomacy. So, hello everyone who is in the room right now. And I'm really thrilled to be here today to talk about the power of data visualization and its potential to unlock insights into a complex global phenomena like Hallyu. So we live in a world increasingly shaped by cultural flows in a very hyper-connected world full of data. And understanding these dynamics is crucial for researchers, policymakers, and industry professionals. And today I'll try to introduce you this mapping application that we developed, Hallyu Tracker, and demonstrate how data-driven approach can illuminate the often hidden dimensions of cultural influence across the globe. So what is Hallyu? for all those who maybe come into the topic really fresh. Hallyu, or also another name is the Korean wave, has become a really global cultural movement, cultural phenomenon, cultural activism, encompassing everything from K-pop to dramas, to fashion, cuisine, and even lifestyles. Starting in 1990s, Hallyu's influence spread rapidly from Asian region into the whole world, captivating different continents around the world. And now it's present in Asia Pacific, in Europe, and in Americas. By 2020, Hallyu fandom reached 225 million people across 119 countries, generating billions in United States dollars in exports. And this impressive social and economic impact begs just one question for me. Can big data and artificial intelligence offer deep insights into Hallyu explosive growth over the past 3 decades? And could computational technologies reveal the nuanced dynamics driving this cultural phenomenon, going beyond simple metrics of sales and fan numbers? So in my presentation today, I would like to explore how data might unlock a more complete understanding of Hallyu transnational journey by demonstrating the application that we've managed to develop. So first, I will introduce the mapping app, outlining its origin, research design, and data collection methodology. Second, I will demonstrate the platform's core functionality to share its capabilities for exploration and research. And finally, I will illustrate the Hallyu tracker practical applications for industry, academic research, and policy analysis and decision-making, and will offer some specific examples. So let's start from the very beginning. Hallyu Tracker is a digital creative project that emerged from 2024 Korean Foundation funded research grant called Mapping the Global Impacts of Hallyu. So that research also was co-funded by my university, University of the Arts Singapore, where I'm right now. The project deployed a reflexive digital praxis methodology, an agile, iterative process of knowledge generation through creative practice, theory, and collaborative reflection and collaborative effort. It aimed to develop new computational methods to explore Hallyu to address a critical gap in understanding the Korean wave global impact. While its influence is undeniable, existing analysis very often relies on limited qualitative data. And this project aimed to build a robust data-driven platform to measure, map, and analyze Hallyu's global complex dynamics across time and space. Before proceeding, I must acknowledge the foundational work upon which Hallyu Tracker is built. So this project employed a complex, multifaceted research design, bringing together Hallyu scholars from diverse academic disciplines. And that included international relations and diplomacy, cultural policy and management, global media communications, data science and cultural analytics, sociology and anthropology. And each researcher on the team pursued their own focused mapping and research tasks aligned with their specific areas of expertise and specific areas of interest. These individual efforts were able to visualize these efforts through the Data to Power platform, and we created a multi-layered geovisualization of Korean wave. So I would like to acknowledge once again the foundational work of all team members and especially research assistants for their invaluable contributions. And especially our research assistants, they've done a really great work in aggregating tons of data from multiple sources. So our research incorporated the aggregation of 3 key data types. First, we utilized open data from Korean government sources like the Korean Office of International Cultural Exchange or Statistics Korea, among many. And there are many, many offices in Korea, government offices who collect this data. So we supplemented this with open source repositories like the World Bank or United Nations database. Second, we drew on secondary data from think tanks and research centers including the global economy or the Harvard Dataverse. So that also provided a lot of data sets for us that we could use. Finally, our research assistants collected data from scratch, tailored to specific research tasks. For instance, one researcher explored Chinese social media, aggregated data on anti-Hallyu hashtags, posts, comments, and audiences analytics. And this data is unique. It doesn't exist anywhere because it's really difficult to go behind their firewall of China to collect all this data, especially on such a sensitive topic. So we compiled altogether over 300 data sets, enabling the creation of more than 250 unique mapping layers. So notably, several of these layers provide a comprehensive historical view with data extending from 1990s to 2023. However, this data sample come with limitations, of course, and such as missing data in many secondary sources and the open data banks. So as a result, Hallyu Tracker utilized artificial intelligence, or specifically machine learning, to address existing data gaps. It incorporated 3 data types. On the one hand, it's a real value representing factual data. So that was easy. Whatever we could find the data, we would just aggregate and integrate into the mapping application. When we couldn't find the data for particular years, we applied 2 approaches. On the one hand, we introduced rolling values. So rolling values, values applied from the closest recent available years. So if there is no data for this year, for example, we take the data from a previous year. If we see there is no any other factors could affect dramatically this increase or decrease in data value. And we also used predicted values generated for data sets with sufficient historical data and stable trends. So predicted values, crucial for filling these data gaps, were calculated using linear regression model. And such approach combines factual data on the one hand with predictive modeling to provide a more complete picture of Hallyu evolving landscape, despite the initial data limitations. Also, it was critical to come up with this solution for missing data, because otherwise all the mapping wouldn't be possible, because we cannot map if there is really gaps in the data. So in the Hallyu tracker, individual data layers form measurement indices of specific variables, and there is tons of these variables. If you click any country on the global map, you will see all these indexes, sub-indices, and different data sets that were included in these variables. So each index is a normalized value of weighted indicators and is presented on the scale from 0 to 100. 100 is the maximum, 0 is the minimum. So using mean normalization, the platform highlights geolocations on the mapping layers with exceptional performance in specific indicators or their overall index. And this design allows for easy comparison and identification of key trends in Hallyu global presence and impact. So Hallyu Tracker design centers around 3 interconnected power clusters. 3 pillars that I call you, that I identified when thinking how we can deconstruct this carrying wave and what components it includes. So these clusters, the reach power combines data on local economic context of each country on the global map, and this country capacity for Hallyu consumption with actual, and it compares this data with actual target export efforts on the Korean government and industry sides. So on the one hand, we have all this potential of the reach, and on the other hand, what is really going on in terms of actual exports that are happening in this particular country. So appeal power explores the factors driving Hallyu appeal, looking at different sets of cultural values, including values related more to Korean culture itself and values related to global universal values. And again, we also compare it with target efforts of the Korean government in terms of globalization to make their products and services appealing to a particular country. And finally, we have this engagement power that measures actual engagement, encompassing fan activities, media coverage, public sentiment, and we differentiate across positive Hallyu engagement and negative Hallyu engagement. And these clusters are underpinned by three core analytical lenses. So reach, understanding local context, social and economic demographic, appeal, exploring cultural realities, and engagement, measuring their final impact. So Hallyu trackers visualization tools include two types of mapping. It's a choropleth mapping and symbol mapping on the other side. So the choropleth maps display country level data, and they use color gradients to represent index scores, with brighter colors indicating the higher performance. So if you see on the map, some countries are shining bright with particular colors, it means they are performing really well on these particular indicators. For urban level data, we collected data for 14 key cities that we selected that we think are foundational for Hallyu circulation around the globe. And they are in different parts and continents around the world as well. So for this urban level data, we use symbol maps and we use circle size to denote index scores. So larger circles are signifying larger values. So if you see a bigger circle, it means that that city is performing really well on that particular indicator. Hallyu Tracker interactive timeline allows users to visualize data in layers across a 30-year span from 1990 to 2023. It's important to note that not all layers have this timeline, because for some layers we were not able to collect data going back to 30 years. So some of them are just to present in 2023. So data changes over time can be dynamically explored using the timelines playback feature that you can see on the left bottom corner in the application. So Hallyu Tracker facilitates in-depth data comparison across countries and years for each layer and data set. So users can easily compare performance and trends. For focused analysis, a blue ping, for example, allows users to fix or log country-specific data for closer examination. So you can open different countries and compare across data that to certain indicators. And a yellow pin allows users to log time milestones data, enabling the comparison of key events or periods. For example, you can open China in 1990s and then in 2015 and then 2023 and see how all these indicators are changing across the time if you really need to see the values of this data. So Hallyu Tracker enhances data exploration with contextualized stories as well. And some layers feature annotations represented by pins on the map. And they are linked to specific countries and cities. And these stories provide valuable insights and narratives related to the data. And sometimes when you're really tired of all this data, sometimes it doesn't make sense to you. Reading this story is really, gives you a relief and enriching, because you start understanding deeper. And I think it's a very, very strong dimension to the program. So with the wealth of data visualization on the global map, what questions can Hallyu Tracker help us ask, and what questions it can help us answer? So we can use this platform, and how we can use it, for what purposes. In the next part of my presentation, I will explore how industries, academics, and policymakers can leverage Hallyu Tracker, and we will delve into the three distinct clusters of mapping layers that I just announced: reach, appeal, and engagement, demonstrating the platform practical applications. So I hope that it will help you to understand better why to do all this effort, 1 year effort to collecting and putting this all together. So Hallyu Tracker offers immense value to the industry, streamlining market exploration and mitigating risks. So exploring new entertainment markets for creative industry is typically very time-consuming and risky exercise, because deciding which market to enter, where to go, why this and not that country, how we can compare these different countries, where the value generation would be better, where we will have a stronger impact. All these questions bother the minds of industry professionals. So Hallyu Tracker simplifies this process by providing valuable insights into potential virgin markets. By comparing country profiles across diverse economic, social, demographic, and political variables, the app enables users to spot emerging trends and identify untapped opportunities, especially untapped opportunities. So this data-driven approach empowers industry professionals to design effective strategy for identifying and cultivating potential markets, engaging global audiences, and fostering stronger fan connections and measuring economic and social impacts. For example, Hallyu Tracker Reach Power cluster assesses a country's Hallyu potential and target audiences, who we could reach, and what is currently happening in terms of a targeted audience. It analyzes factors like economic infrastructure, demographics, government cultural experts, and it considers a nation's actual audience size, purchasing power, global trade position in the global markets. So by examining these variables, the track identifies country with Hallyu consumption potential, and crucially, it compares this potential with existing market penetration through cultural imports, revealing untapped opportunities. This allows for strategic targeting and resource allocation. So you can see, for example, on my slide, that on the one hand, we have this potential reach and how many countries are shining bright on the map, and what is happening right now in terms of the actual imports that are actually going on, with many countries not at the same level. So with the wealth of economic and social demographic variables displayed on the map, we can pose the following questions when we play with the Hallyu Tracker. Does a country economic development impact its actual Hallyu consumption? How can K-industry leverage emerging markets with high potential? What countries have the highest potential for Hallyu consumption but have not yet been targeted by the industry? And what opportunities exist in specific regional markets? So, while the Korean government focuses on established Hallyu markets, Hallyu Track identifies numerous untapped opportunities. For instance, nearly 50 countries, including several in the Middle East, like Oman, Qatar, and Kuwait, have high Hallyu reach power indices, which goes above 70s, yet they receive minimal direct Hallyu imports. These nations possess strong financial trade openness, stable purchasing power, high internet penetration rate, and robust human development index. And critically, very important, their young median age from 29 until 35 aligns perfectly with Hallyu target demographic. So this useful population with growing content demands, which are currently underserved by local regional creative industries, present a decisive factor in assessing Hallyu potential reach. So Hallyu Tracker thus reveals promising markets beyond current strategic priorities. So going beyond direct industry implications, Hallyu Tracker is no less but a fascinating tool, especially for me as an academic, for inductive research that employs the power of big data to deconstruct and demystify global cultural phenomena that previously remained challenging, if not really impossible, for focused quantitative analysis, which makes them really weak for wider generalization, for example, or cross-country comparison, really difficult. So mapping as a methodological approach can facilitate exploring unknowns as opposed to just the use of maps to illustrate something or to communicate what we already, the existing knowledge. So geovisualization framework can be instrumental for intense data explorations to identify patterns that help to pose important hypotheses. And this is exactly what I love doing. So running multiple queries through the mapping system exposes correlation of and integrates multiple data sets pertaining to wider overarching themes. And looking at the Hallyu tracker, we can ask questions such as related to digital inequalities or even to digital imperialism. But today I will try explain Hallyu tracker value for academic research using a different example, focusing on the question, what are the secrets behind the Korean wave universal appeal, reaching across social, economic, and most importantly, cultural geographies, captivating people from diverse religion beliefs, linguistic backgrounds, historical context, and cultural settings. So these questions have long been the subject of academic debate, exploring various factors behind the global appeal of Hallyu power. So numerous scholars have explored the factors contributing to Hallyu global appeal, often drawing upon theories emphasizing cultural similarities. So one prominent concept is cultural affinity. So suggesting audiences connect with Korean culture due to pre-existing links rooted in shared history, language, philosophical traditions like Confucianism. So another key concept is cultural proximity, highlighting the perceived closeness between cultures, often measured through shared values and norms. For example, Geert Hofstadter's work on cultural dimensions provides a framework for understanding these value-based similarities. And I use his framework in my mapping system. I will explain later. So these theories often provide valuable lenses through which to examine Hallyu widespread appeal. So beyond cultural similarities, numerous academics explain Hallyu appeal through the lenses of universal human values and globally shared experiences. So transnational proximity theory emphasizes shared experiences, common issues that transcend borders, suggesting Hallyu resonates by addressing universal themes or identifying and belonging with something bigger than your own nation. So thinkers like Anthony Giddens have contributed to understanding these global hyperconnections. Finally, the concept of human universals, fundamental behaviors and norms common to all cultures, suggest Hallyu taps into deep human value, making it universally appealing. So Donald Brown's work on human universals is particularly relevant here. So Hallyu global appeal is also explained, could be explained through the theories emphasizing cultural fusion and cross-cultural influences. So cultural hybridity theory highlights how Hallyu blends Korean elements with global trends, for example, American K-pop, creating new hybrid forms that appeal to people living in different countries around the world. And it recognizes that Hallyu isn't purely a Korean product. That's why there is such a huge debate right now. Should we have K in front of these industries? Because the industry right now, it's not Korean any longer. It's something different. So Homi Bapa's work on cultural hybridity is central to this understanding. Also, localization, a combination of globalization and localization, explains how Hallyu adapts to specific markets. So Korean entertainment strategically tailors content and marketing to resonate with diverse audiences. Ronald Robertson's work provides a foundation for understanding Hallyu's localization impacts, which is very well discussed in marketing theories. So these theories underscores how Hallyu thrives on cultural exchange and adaptation. So, understanding these theoretical foundations, on the Hallyu tracker, the power of appeal is mapped across 3 dedicated layers. So we have this universal appeal, national appeal, and target appeal. So national appeal corresponds to the cultural proximity theory and measures country exposure to Korean culture and its alignment with Korean social norms. Universal appeal takes inspiration in transnational proximities theories and demonstrates countries' global integrations based on liberal values and their inclusion into international discourses and norms. And finally, target appeal cluster draws on cultural fusion theories and evaluates Korean industry and government promotional efforts, including localization efforts, cultural exchanges, targeted cultural exchanges that are heavily facilitated by the state, because the Korean government heavily capitalizes on this global cultural phenomenon. So these mapping layers invite such questions as, does political regime and cultural context influence Hallyu consumption? What is cultural geography of Hallyu? Could social and dietary proximity, because this is exactly what I'm mapping, dietary proximity set a context for understanding Hallyu culture? Could cultural proximity be an antipode to cultural exotism? And could cultural exotism actually be another type of appeal? Currently, I'm not mapping that because I don't know yet how to deconstruct, but it's very, very fascinating, I think. So, for example, the national appeal power measures the country population exposure to Korean culture and realities in combination with its proximity to Korean social norms and cultural values. Interestingly, France and Vietnam, despite vastly diverse contexts, score similarly on this index. So Vietnam's geographic proximity grants greater cultural exposure, exemplified by high student and tourist numbers. However, France scores higher on Hofstede cultural proximity scale, indicating stronger value alignment with Korea, particularly in power distance, individualism and collectivism, and uncertainty avoidance. So while a direct causal links between France's high appeal score and Hallyu consumption is really difficult to establish, we can only talk about correlation here. France is the top Hallyu consumer outside Asia, and this is the fact. So this suggests that cultural proximity, while not the sole maybe driver, but plays a significant role in Hallyu global success. So Hallyu's appeal transcends cultural proximity also, and many K-idols champion universal values like human rights, resonating with global audiences. Hallyu Tracker's Universal Appeal Power Index combines a normative liberalism index with a global exposure index, reflecting mobility through media, migration, and tourism, to basically measuring all this data, social demographic data and immigration data that shows to what extent this country belongs to the globe. Either it portrays very parochial values. So the UK, a socially liberal leader, scores significantly higher than Brazil on this index, reflecting differences in political freedom and social tolerance. And this disparity correlates strongly with Hallyu engagement scores, with the UK demonstrating higher engagement. However, while UK engagement is driven by stronger media coverage, Brazil boasts more fan clubs and high active fan engagement. And this suggests that even with less liberal political context, the universal values promoted by Hallyu can still resonate with population, driving fan activity and engagement. So finally, let's see if Hallyu Tracker could be used as a policy analysis tool. And the use of data in policymaking and diplomacy measurements transforms both the decision-making process at least I believe in that, as well as communication of policies to the masses. And I think in the majority of cases, it's used as the communication of policies to the masses, because the value of a good graph or a good map has a power to change people's minds. For example, in the past decades, data-driven measurements applied to evaluate soft power of countries, and it gained a really significant popularity with many ranking systems produced by national governments and private actors. And I'm sure you all heard about the Soft Power 30 Index, the most powerful in the past decades. So since 2010, it's measured soft power for as many as 30 countries on the annual basis and earned a reputation of one of the most widely consulted indices among practitioners worldwide. For many countries, the Portland or Soft Power 30 annual report was an important indicator of their global performance. And frequently, nation states took their drop-down scores as direct call for improvements. For example, I was invited as a keynote by UK ICOM in 2019. That was the year when UK dropped down on that score, and there was a lot of concern in the community how we can increase this score in the upcoming years, right? According to 2017 Soft Power 30 report, South Korea's soft power was ranked 19 out of 30 countries, dropping its score from the previous years and raising concern that Korean culture is losing its competitiveness. Yeah, another example. To tackle this issue, the Korean Culture and Information Service injected nearly 10 million United States dollars from 2018 to 2022 to further promote Korea's brand around the world. Of course, that was like a critical factor. We have to take action on that. However, grades produced by such global ranking systems are far from neutral. Kelly's book, Scorecard Diplomacy, stresses that scorecard dashboards reduce a complex reality to a preferred interpretation, labeling countries' images and shaping their perceptions. So various monitoring and grading systems are powerful means of the scorecard diplomacy, as they publicly expose countries' failures and put international actors in competition for better scores. Furthermore, many soft power dashboards present soft power as a universal, uniform force, neglecting its varied impact across diverse social, economic, political, and cultural contexts. For example, ranking the United States highest in soft power implies equal appeal in Russia, Brazil, UK, France, and Vietnam, a claim that is really hard to comprehend and to prove indeed. So understanding this power is not as a constanta, but as an important variable that dynamically changes its values on the global map. In my research, in my mapping, the Hallyu tracker shifts away the attention from high competition in soft power performance to exposing and exploring one's own weaknesses in different geographical zones. And this approach stresses that there is no winners or losers of soft power. But what I argue, and this is my most strongest argument, is that there are multiple factors that shape soft power resources and outcomes depending on specific local challenges and opportunities. For example, Hallyu tracker correlates multiple layers of local information with actual engagement results. The rich power cluster situates the country population within the economic, social, demographic context, looking into such variables as audience scope, the country consumption power, trade positions, and so on and so forth. The appeal power cluster allows to explore each country cultural context by mapping potential appeal of Hallyu based on cultural, on transnational proximities. And finally, engagement power cluster includes local engagement index that assess a country geopolitical context in terms of global political activities in multilateral context And on the bilateral level, through specific ties with South Korea, because we are looking at the Korean wave. So we are actually measuring the relationship between Korea and other countries. So by combining these layers, Hallyu tracker moves beyond broad generalization, revealing how specific local conditions shape Hallyu reception and impact. So engagement power cluster, the final pillar in my design, it's measures digital and physical consumption and circulation patterns, including positive and negative sentiments. It examines positive engagement via such variables like digital fandom, media resonance, and Google Trends. These metrics reveal where Hallyu products and services are trending, but not just with directly purchases that occur, because these purchases number are really well known to the industries and to the governments, not to us, unfortunately, because this, especially the industry, they would never share this data. So, and this indicates social media visibility, popularity, presence, and global informational flows, and search frequency related to Hallyu interest. So these are their data that we could really access and could really aggregate and could really integrate. And maybe it's more there is more integrity in this approach, because it doesn't necessarily rely on the numbers provided by involved stakeholders that could be boosted, right? So, for example, Mexico with 76 Hallyu clubs around the country and more than 27 million fans, according to the Korean government numbers, also shines bright on the Hallyu engagement layer. However, its high engagement is attributed to its strong media resonance, digital fandom, and Google Trends searches, all scoring above 90. So Hallyu tracker goes also beyond measuring positive engagement to also quantify anti-Korean sentiment. And we have this dedicated anti-Hallyu layer that analyzes and counters negative attitudes towards Hallyu. It examines media coverage of anti-Korean viewpoints, the social media reach of anti-Hallyu groups, and public interest in related topics. By tracking these indicators, Hallyu tracker provides a comprehensive view of public sentiment, revealing both the positive and the negative dimensions of Hallyu global reception. And this allows for a more nuanced understanding of Hallyu impact and potential challenges. So looking at this layer, what kind of questions can we ask? And I listed here the following. How does the geographical distribution of impact data differ between government sources and open source platforms, right? This is exactly the question that was the most interesting to me. To what extent do global media influence Hallyu engagement in different regions? How do varying levels of censorship and government regulations influence Hallyu fandom in different countries? In relation to this last question, we can explore the following example. So in the past, the anti-Hallyu movement in China, fueled by South Korea's decision to deploy the United States-led missile defense system, significantly impacted the consumption and circulation of Korean cultural products in China. So with anti-Hallyu attitudes on social media reaching 1.6 billion posts, reposts, and reaction in 2016, the Chinese digital landscape posed a significant challenge for Hallyu circulation. Nevertheless, despite this severe anti-Hallyu sentiment, the Hallyu tracker shows that China has still scores very high on the Hallyu engagement index. In 2020, for example, China achieved a score of 99 out of 100 with top engagement levels for digital and physical fandoms, media resonance, and Hallyu consumption. So Hallyu tracker's granular data allows for a nuanced understanding of Hallyu impact in specific locations, revealing a complex interplay of strengths and weaknesses. So to conclude, I want to share the future trajectories of Hallyu developments. While the mapping application accumulates hundreds of data sets displaying millions of data points indeed. So the multi-layered mapping and geovisualization of this wealth of data proved to be really difficult to uncover meaningful insights beyond the surface level. All the examples that I presented, you just can analyze it and come up to this conclusion very easily just playing with the Hallyu as a newbie. But what interests me is all these data correlations, causations, and data relationships that are not evident to my human eye, because looking through 250 layers mapping and trying to understand, trying to find meaningful insights is really, really difficult. To address these limitations, the new project was developed to explore new models and frameworks to enable human AI collaboration in data visualization tasks to deepen this analysis. So AI interventions is invited. This is what I want to do next, to bring the researchers' attentions to hidden data patterns, data correlations, data anomalies that are not evident through existing data visualization techniques, even so sophisticated that we already used. So let me show you a video demo.
Data storytelling is everywhere in the digital age. With countless tools and ready-made solutions, anyone can turn raw data into appealing illustrations. Despite the power of data visualization, the massive datasets we now work with often defy our attempts to extract meaningful patterns. The sheer volume of data available today overwhelms traditional visualization techniques. It makes it difficult, if not impossible, to uncover hidden insights. Data to Power is a platform that leverages the power of AI to delve beyond the surface of data. It seeks to address current limitations to reveal subtle data correlations that would evade human detection, even with advanced and careful data mapping. By automating tasks such as data cleaning and normalization, Data to Power allows researchers to streamline statistical analysis to focus on a high-level research for groundbreaking discoveries. With features like multi-layered maps, interactive timelines, and vector flow visualizations, this tool brings data to life. The future of data analysis is here, with a new interface developing to facilitate a powerful human AI collaboration for more sophisticated research and decision-making. For example, AI can supercharge the visual analytics pipeline by uncovering relationships among millions of data points, revealing new insights, identifying gaps, and highlighting trends or anomalies. By empowering researchers with these tools, Data to Power can facilitate novel discoveries to foster innovations across diverse fields.
Okay, so we created the video, but only have just applied for the funding. So this is the future. It doesn't exist yet, but this is my main trajectory for exploration and what to do next with this Hallyu tracker, to develop more of these tools to collaborate with AI, because my human mind is not able to comprehend all the complexity that we were able to put together into one system. So yeah, I'm sorry that I went beyond the timing. So, but I hope we can use the time productively. The remaining time, maybe stay a little bit longer, maybe for 3-5 minutes to answer all the questions if there are any. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Wow. There's a lot to digest there, and there is already a question in the chat, but I imagine other people on the call are digesting this and thinking about what they want to ask. So I would just encourage people to, when they're ready, to post away. And I also have lots of questions, some quite sort of broader contextual ones as well. But I will take the question that's been posted in the chat by Tim Winter. I don't know, Natalia, can you see the questions in the chat yourself? You can have a look at it while I'm speaking.
Yeah, I can see.
So I think ultimately it's this sort of, is there a distinction between sort of familiarity with, I guess, sort of the Korean wave and South Korean soft power or cultural exports in the round, and actually people just being familiar with one specific aspect of that. They might be really into K-pop and not know anything else, So how do you kind of distinguish between this? How do you kind of, I guess, draw broader conclusions about people's consumption if it's just potentially just based on, a particular aspect of Korean culture?
Oh,
Apologies
yeah.
to Kim if I've
I think
garbled that, but
yeah, in my mapping project, and in terms of how and what kind of data we collected. So I understand there are different dimensions of Hallyu, from K cuisine to K cosmetics, right, to K dramas and films, K-pop music. So we collected as much data as possible, but we also were limited always with the data that is available to us, which is in the open public access. So some of the industry would never share this data, and it all remains very opaque. That's why it's not possible to even understand the consumption patterns or to identify where they go or how they go. So, and they're not interested in sharing, and that's fine. So, like I already mentioned, on the one hand, we collected all this kind of global imports of Hallyu, exports of Hallyu, that the Korean government, they're aggregating its data itself. Whether we should trust this data is a different question, but this data was available and we could map that. That's why we have this target appeal layer, target reach layer, where we can totally understand in the past 30 years where did they send the Hallyu product. And this encompasses all different products and fashion and music and the dramas, Korean dramas. So on the other hand, yeah, we are, for example, in the social media, we mostly focused on K-pop. So why K-pop? Because K-pop has a global fandom. Let's say just one group of K-pop, BTS, the most popular around the world. It has more than 13 million people who are a very active a part of this fandom. So, and this is more than an army, a regular army of a state. And what we also understood that these people are not, this is the power, it's not only just in the number of these people, but this power is in what these people can actually do within each country. Because this fandom because we had a very focused social media research across the United States, Singapore and China about the BTS fandom. And we were able to understand such interesting things about, because they serve as really very hard forces of activism, defending their local cultures and addressing the national problems and social issues that exist. For example, fandom in the United States that was very active during this Black Lives Matter movement was directly associated with this movement. So BTS fans were advocating for this equality of racial equalities, right? So in China, it was all about fighting against national propaganda and fighting against nationalism in this very strong anti-Hallyu movement because of this geopolitics between China and South Korea. So in Singapore, it also were associated with a very strong social movement about migrants. So defending the rights of people who are from marginalized communities. So we can see that. So I think I dropped off my question that originally was about which directions, but yeah, depending on the media that we looked, we either were focusing on particular dimension, like with social media, that was really present there, and it was it took a lot of time, but we were able to identify thousands of fans groups that exist in each country around the world, dedicated to particular K-pop groups. So that was present there. So yeah, but again, I just must say, in some cases, it was all about all together. Or, for example, in terms of media resonance, right? So where we worked with LexisNexis database, which contains millions of articles for the past several decades, where we were able to identify the masses of articles on the Korean Hallyu, just using such keywords as, for example, Hallyu, Korean wave, K-pop, different top groups, different names of K-dramas. So, and identifying where there's articles were produced in which particular country. So that was the index of media resonance in this country in this particular year. So again, we were followed by the data. Whatever is available, we will just pursue it. But again, it was even a huge team, but we had limited resources. So I do not claim that what I developed has a very comprehensive overlook over Hallyu with all these different trajectories that it takes in terms of different creative industries. No, definitely not. It has its biases. For example, strong bias to K-pop. We also did a lot of research with K-dramas, the most popular names. So yeah, we were followed by the data, unfortunately.
Okay. No, well, that's it's fascinating. Thank you very much, and thanks for the question, Tim. There's a couple more. One, I'll take the last one first. So from Christina, greetings to you in Copenhagen. When will this data to power website launch? And because it seems like it will be very useful for lots of people, including Christina. So what are your plans? Will all this be kind of publicly available? Will it be shared? How are you going to kind of?
It's already there. It's in public domain. Yes, we requested funding to keep it live in the following 3 years. So for sure, in the following 3 years in public domain, anybody can go and use it. Anybody can go and criticize it. Anybody can play with it and send me all the feedback. I'm very open because I understand that it's a major effort that we put together to do that, but it has many limitations, like I said, and biases. So more eyes are looking into that and more people are playing with that. It's better because then we can understand where we are missing out on something or where we can improve. So it's in public access. I think my email invite already contained the link to this platform where you can go and play with it right away. And I think with the guide that I gave today, what you can do, and you can move, for example, on the timeline back into history, you can move across clusters of layers, you can visualize each particular layer on the data set, not necessarily the index itself. So you can do many, many things. So yeah, please go and play with it.
Great. And then Avril's question in the chat, I had a sort of related one as well. So Avril's asking, is this just specific to an analysis of Korea and the Korean way, or do you think that this data might be useful for other analysis that is more broader or for other regions? And my question sort of related to that was, could this kind of project be done for another geography? And it's like, do you think it's transferable?
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a framework that I developed with Hallyu because I'm currently located in Asia. I have access to all these resources. I have a network of scholars who could work with me. So my interest was on Hallyu. But this framework could be adopted for other global movements, for cultural flows, for cultural conference flows, for international cultural relations, because the whole research that you can see right now, it's all started with first developing the framework for measuring museums of power. So yeah, and for many years, I was exploring way how we can put museums on the global map and understand the global impacts in different countries. So I was, engaging very closely with this soft power. With that, I went a bit further, and it's not only measuring the power of institutions, but more about the global phenomenon as it is. So definitely it could be used. And right now I'm thinking even this current version that is oriented towards Hallyu, so several layers could be used to understand just the global trend beyond Hallyu. Because when we talk about this rich power layer and we talk about the consumption power of different countries, right, or their global positions in the trade or their audience scope, it could be related to other kind of industries and not necessarily in Korean. However, I made it a little bit specific to Korean because, for example, on the audience scope, we have such a variable as median age. And the younger the population living in the country, the higher value I applied to this country in terms of its audience scope, because Hallyu demographics are very young people. So that's why countries with older populations received lower score. This doesn't necessarily will apply to maybe other creative industries or soft power or cultural relations. Yeah, this is specific to Korean, but other indicators, if you look at these 250 layers separately, or in terms of the appeal power, where I measured, for example, this liberal universalism, right, of countries, looking at their global exposure and the global integration and the global discourses through migration, through tourism, through media, through all these things. It can be applied to some other things, not necessarily to Hallyu. So yeah, there are layers there already there that you can explore to different countries, trends beyond the Korean WAME framework. So, but definitely it is my goal to move beyond that. It's just an example for me. And I must admit, I'm not a Hallyu, a Korean WAVE scholar per se. I don't have this deep knowledge that all my team members had, because they have been researching that for years, the whole their lives. For me, it's a new topic. I'm only 2 years with that. So yeah, and I come with a completely different purpose why I want to do that. Because for me, it's just an example. Yeah, thank you so much for that interesting question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this touches on the question that Odila has put in the chat as well, actually, going into a bit more about the sort of types of data, the different data sets that you're able to explore. Beyond demographic data, could you say a little bit more about the sort of different types of data that you're drawing on in order to, if I'm understanding Odila's question right, to sort of make the connection between these different trends? Are there different kinds of data sets beyond demographic data that you?
Of course. Like I said, if you have some time to explore and you go to each of the clusters, so the social demographic data, which is basically coming from World Bank data, that automatically aggregates all this data into my platform. You don't need to collect it manually. So beyond, they are basically used in this reach power cluster, because the potential reach, the audience scope, that all relates there. But all other types of data beyond that, they're very specific, and some of them are really, really interesting, and some of them I would say really, really unique, because there is no such data, because it was collected from scratch by our research assistants. For example, there was a data set somewhere on the local target appeal. Local target appeal, it's all the efforts either on the Korean government side or creative industries in Korea, all the efforts in terms of making these products and services appealing in different parts of the world. So we actually mapped the origin of K-pop idols because it turns out that one of the big drive for many people living in different parts of the world, including United States, Canada, Australia, many countries in Asia, the top leader is Japan. So of producers of K-pop idols. So it means that these people were strategically integrated into K-pop bands because they come from this a different country context. And of course, people who are fans of this group, they cherish the most these idols that are coming from their own national context. This is super smart. So yeah, so, and it's only one. The other one is translation. The other thing that we found out, and we also mapped these data sets, we found a website that contains fan translations of web tunes. So, and it's massive data with a lot of languages involved. So again, on the one hand, it shows how much it's popular in different parts of the world. On the other hand, it shows that this target effort is not only on the, so we identified two stakeholders. The government could targetedly do that, right? Through their embassy programs, through their cultural exchanges, through the numerous Korean centers that they plant in different countries around the world. The Korean industries, of course, they do it, for example, by inviting foreign idols to be a part of their groups. But it's also another stakeholder is the fandom itself, who plays a huge role in popularizing these products by making them locally available and accessible just through language translations, which is very, very interesting, I think. So, yeah. Thank you. I hope I answered the question.
I think so, yeah. And there is one more question. I'm aware that people on the call might not necessarily be able to see the questions in the chat. It might just be me and you can see them. So hopefully we are answering them. I don't know how to set up so that people can see the questions as well, but let's not worry about that now. There is another one that I wanted to get to, which is asking about whether you mentioned BTS, the sort of most popular K-pop band, but there'll be many other bands out there, that might be less popular. But so how do you kind of, if you just focus on, is there a risk, is there a bias potentially that you
yeah, we're not so yeah.
distorted?
Yeah, I was thinking very thoroughly about this question. And for my sample analysis, I chose not only BTS, but I also chose, I think, 10 top groups in the past 2 decades, which we also used for target exploration in terms of media resonance, in terms of Google Trends, and other data that we could collect on these groups, or, for example, Facebook fan communities and how many fan communities for each of these groups. But also I selected 2 groups that was very interesting because it was an experiment. I selected 2 groups that are very, very local to Korea. They only use Korean language for their content, and they are targeted to Korean audiences. And I just wanted to also to include them in the sample and check them across all these different other dimensions. And it turned out, yes, they are not popular anywhere except Korea. So that they proved the concept that the Korean, so right now this K industries, they put a lot of efforts in really entering and pushing into different markets. So if they are not oriented towards international publics, then it's a low chance that they will be visible or recognizable anywhere. So yeah, so I just tested this hypothesis. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
That makes sense. Thank you. Okay, I think that's all the questions in the chat, but I wanted to just ask one final one if we've got time. People can stay for another 5 minutes or so. And it's kind of, as we're a research alliance in ICRA, we think about things like research ethics quite a lot, and that's particularly sort of apparent at the moment with when we think about AI and the ethics of AI. So I just want to, what's your perspective on that as someone who's obviously kind of really interested in AI and is looking at the potential for AI driven analysis, to do stuff that you can't, like you say, you can't do as one human, or even as a team of researchers, you can't do. But AI holds potentially to do some of this. But there are ethical risks, there are biases, etc., etc. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, I'm approaching it very upfront, because people right now, when we talk about AI, most people think about generative AI, right? So all this chatbots, or this tools that help them to generate content in a way, right? So, but AI is a very broad topic, and the way I'm using it is very, very much controlled by a human researcher. For example, I mentioned we already use AI and machine learning for this missing data gaps. So it helps, we use it as a specific tool to help us to overcome the data gaps and predict values if, for example, the data is missing, and we can see that the trend is stable and we have data going back to the last 40 years. So it can inform what will happen in the few years for which we don't have data. So again, for the next, what I'm preparing and applying for another grant for this project, I want to develop not a tool that will tell me how to analyze this. I will not trust that at all. I want to develop a tool of human AI collaboration, a dialogue. So for example, the AI can suggest, right? Can suggest some recommendations, can suggest some correlations, can suggest something that it's very hard for me to understand, looking simultaneously at 250 layers of data. Not possible, right? Especially in 40 years, each of them. Not possible. AI can do that. And it can suggest all the things. And as a human researcher, I will need to try to take this and understand better how to work with that, or if we can work with that, or if we can even develop a hypothesis based on that, or it's just, craziness. So also, a lot of generative AI tools, they are already built and pre-built on particular databases. And of course, there is a lot of limitations and biases in terms of how much data each database contains, right? And that's why the opinion of AI that they give us, it depends on all the data that is currently there. But we all know about all this racial and gender and professional biases that already included in these databases, basically because the majority of we're still lacking a lot of data from smaller cultural communities or colonized communities, right? Where it's difficult, they're not at the same stage to produce the same amount of digital data that could feed into this databases. So what I'm doing with this, so yeah, and I'm not arguing that it comes without limitations bias. So as I said, we put together this database of data. So of course, in certain cases, it has a lot of gaps, limitations, but it's controlled. It was controlled by the team of human researchers. So, and we feed right now this AI. And if we develop this tool, it will be working with these data under our control. And if we see that there are strong biases, we will need to add more data into that. So this is how I think is a more strategic and more appropriate approach to work with that, other than just to rely on AI and think like, oh, AI can give us all the answers. No, AI cannot give us all the answers. It can only suggest. And sometimes these suggestions are really creative, really amazing, really eye-opening, and that's fine and that's amazing. But we always need to apply our own human ability to think critically about what we are dealing with. Yes. Thank you.
As you would for any data, any source.
Yeah, absolutely, for any data. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. That's really interesting. The whole thing was fascinating. Thank you very much, Natalia, and for doing this session for us, and best wishes for the future stages of this project. I hope the funding is awarded and you take it to this next stage. Thanks very much, everyone, for the questions and for joining us today. All the best.
Yeah, thank you so much, James, for facilitating that so amazingly. Thank you, everybody who came today. Thank you all for all your questions. I really enjoyed talking to you today. And I hope to see ICRO members next time. So bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Yeah, that's a good way to end. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.